Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's quick tip. I'm Chris, and I'm here with Mike. And today we'll be talking about the job processing policy preset in Ergosoft. So, Mike, practical scenario. Let's say we have a new customer sending us new work. There's a lot of moving parts. I need to be able to set up a preset so that I can kind of change the dynamics of my workflow on a job by job basis. So let's talk through a practical scenario for this preset because there's a lot of moving parts and we want to make sure that everyone understands exactly what you can do.
Definitely. Yes, so that's the job processing policy. Where you can access that is if you make sure you have your image unselected or deselected. On the right side, you'll have your properties and actions. All of these are specific to the job. So if you look on the towards the bottom, we have job processing policy. If you look here, there are a few pre-made options, but if you click the green plus for new, it'll bring up a window with all of our options. This is where we can really do what you were talking about, right? Which is where we can manipulate the workflow and how the data is managed. There is a option here for archiving. I don't know if you were wanting to archive these jobs, but you have options for that here.
Okay, and I see an option to archive the print environment as well as the images. So let's say that we want to archive this job, it's new work, we might have to take a look at it in the future. So we'll hold on to the files in the print environments, and then we can delete the jobs after 15 days.
Yep.
Great.
So then that's what this would do. This would delete it after 15 days. And when it archives the data, it's going to include the environment and the images. You do have an option on the bottom here for where. So you could actually define a user location. So you could put it maybe like on the network. Maybe if you have different multiple workstations, you'd be able to access it from multiple workstations if it's on the network. We're just going to use our default folder, which is local, but that is customizable if you would like to do that.
Okay, so one thing I'm seeing automatically, when you look at the available options in the dropdown, for example, the preset options that we offer, a lot of this is related to your hard drive storage. So as you probably know, when you rip a job, there are several different files that are created, and typically the default location is onto the C drive. So being able to determine where you can store this data will really help you minimize the amount of accumulation you have on the hard drive that's typically in use.
Correct, 100%. The next section we have here is the job ticket. The job ticket has information about like the size, the quantity. The most important part to me on the job ticket is the print environment. So if you're not positive what print environment you used to rip a job, it'll tell you in the job ticket. So that's what the job ticket is definitely useful. I'm not sure if there's different options you wanted in here for these jobs, but by default, it's deleting the job tickets after 180 days. And they're not that large, like you were talking about drive space. They're not that large, so it's not usually as critical as some of the RIP data is.
Okay, so let's change that to 30. After 30 days, we expect to have everything printed. Now, the next piece of this scenario is I have a lot of jobs to rip, but I don't necessarily want to print them immediately.
In the fourth tab, we have workflow. Um, this might look familiar to a lot of you because a lot of these options are available when you click print. A lot of these options will pop up. But this allows you to basically automate that as a part of the preset. So for instance, by default, keep rip data after printing is selected, right? And that's what you were talking about with the rip data. So that's basically the data that is sent to the printer. So that can be sometimes 4 GB for one job, maybe even more. So if we are worried about hard drive space, we can uncheck that.
Okay.
I'm going to do that here. And then we also have suspend rip, suspend printing. That's what you were talking about. Let's say you're ripping this job, but you're going to print it later tonight. You can suspend printing so that it just sits there waiting and it's ready. It's just not going to automatically print in your queue. This section here is for printing copies. Let's say you're doing, if you want to print 20 copies, this section allows you to do the print without gap. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. The print without gap would print each copy right after the other copy. So if you're doing yardage, you can do that with this option here.
And the print with gap is also super effective for non-fabric, non-textile type applications. It's a great tool, saves a ton of time. So let's say that we're doing 20 copies with gap. And you mentioned pre-flight, so let's take a look at that. New customer scenario, we want to do a thorough pre-flight on this stuff before we release it to the machines.
Definitely. This pre-flight here, if you activate it, you're able to select what mode you want. So there's a bunch of modes in here. The two that I use most often are RGB HTML and separated HTML. RGB HTML is literally just going to be an HTML preview of your image, of your output. Separated HTML is going to show you each channel as a grayscale representation to show you how much cyan, magenta, yellow, black you're using.
Okay, so now we have all of our workflow items defined. So we can now make this as a preset and we're off to the races. What's this description field?
This is a text field, basically. You can put whatever you want in here. You can remove some of these automatic options if you would like. So for instance, we can put what we did, right? What options we're using in here. So we can do delete rip data. So we know that it's going to delete the rip data. We can do 20 copies with gap. So it's literally just a description so you know what you did, right?
I
And then
see.
let's put pre-flight on here so we know that we did a pre-flight. And you can be as specific or as unspecific as you would like to be. Once that's all done, all of your options are how you want. If you hit OK, it's going to ask you to save it. So now, once again, you want to save it as a name that you will know what it is. So I'm going to do delete rip data again, and then 20 copies, and then pre-flight. So I'm just going to save it as that name. Now we hit OK, and you'll see our description is here. So, if you're scrolling through the different options, you'll be able to see all of your description there really quickly. And you have your name right here. So now if we hit apply, it will apply all of those settings to our job.
Okay. So there are a number of different ways that you can use this tool depending on what you're trying to do, entirely dependent upon your individual workflow data storage needs. But as you can see, being able to toggle between different job processing policies is going to be very helpful for any time you encounter a scenario that is a little atypical for your business. Very helpful, Mike. Thanks for watching, everyone, and please contact us if you have any questions.